Hello my sweet fellows and welcome back to your Access channel. This is me, Mrs. Rania, your instructor and your supporter in this video. We're still working on Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, and today we reached to the 5th chapter, which called Mr. Brocklehurst's Visit and Its Results. So Jane still at her first days at Lute School, and for sure it was difficult for her to get used to the school rules at Lute, of course, especially physically conditioned there. In January, February and March there was deep snow, but still she had to spend an hour outside every day, of course Jane and her friends at school, and for sure without no boots or gloves. Imagine how could be so harsh condition there. Students and Jane were growing and needed more food than was provided. But for sure, according to the school strategy, it's forbidden. So one afternoon, when Jane had been at Lute for 3 weeks, there was a visitor. All the teachers and students there meet him in a very respectful way. When Jane looked up, she remembered that stony face, or as she said before, the column man or the black column man. It was Mr. Brocklehurst. Now the girl was terrified that Mr. Brocklehurst could tell anyone and everyone there about what Mrs. Reed told him about her in her description about her, or about Jane, that she is the most wicked girl in the world, and they will consider her bad girl or bad child forever. At the beginning, Mr. Brocklehurst was talking whispering to Mrs. Temple, and for sure Jane assumed that he would talk about her, or that talk about her. But when she tried to listen carefully, because she was in front, she tried to listen to them, and at last she knew that they didn't talk about her. Mr. Brocklehurst told Mrs. Temple about that he had the news about giving the children some bread and cheese, and of course he was against that, because as he said, or according to his strategy, the girls or the children have to suffer, or actually the concept of suffering is very important and crucial and very vital thing in child development. Mrs. Temple took the responsibility of the giving breakfast about the bread and cheese. She said the breakfast was badly cooked, that the girls couldn't possibly eat it, so they were hungry. In return, he said to her, "Madam, listen to me for a moment. You know that I'm trying to bring up those girls to be strong, patient, and unselfish. If some little luxury is not available, don't replace it with something else, but tell them to be brave and suffer like Christ himself. Remember?" Mrs. Temple didn't reply. She looked straight in front of her, and her face was as cold and hard as marble. Mr. Brocklehurst looked around at the girls and suddenly shouted, "Who's the girl in the red hair?" In return, Miss Temple replied that her hair is naturally. For sorrow, he couldn't accept that and ordered Miss Temple to cut the girl's hair, for no reason actually, and that is according to his belief or his model in Christianity. Miss Temple tried to beg him for not doing that, but actually he refused all her trials, and he said that he insists to do that. To please God, this girl must have short, straight hair and plain, simple clothes. At this time, he was interrupted by the arrival of 3 ladies, who wore the most expensive clothes and had a beautiful long curly hair. Actually, those ladies were Mr. Brocklehurst's family, his wife and his daughters. How shameful is this? Mr. Brocklehurst applied his strategies in his school that the girls have to live in poverty and all the time they live in need, but on the other side, he and his family all the time live in a very luxury way. How this is so unfair. Jane was hoping not to be recognized by Mr. Brocklehurst, but unfortunately, she fell down her slate and broke into two pieces. And actually, Mr. Brocklehurst noticed that. And he shouted, "A careless girl!" And at the moment he saw her, he just remembered her. And he said, "Ah, the new girl. I see. I mustn't forget to say something to the whole school about her. Come on here, child." Of course, Jane was so frightened to move, but two big girls pushed her towards him. And Miss Temple kindly whispered in her ear, "Don't be afraid, Jane. It was an accident, I know." And of course, Mrs. Temple was talking about the slate that she had broken. She didn't know about Mrs. Reed and the description of Mrs. Reed about Jane. Now, Mr. Brocklehurst looked at the girl and let everyone to just look at her. And he said, "You see this girl? She is young. She looks like an ordinary child. Nothing about her tells you she is evil. But she is all wickedness. Children, don't talk to her. Stay away from her. Teachers, watch her, punish her body to save her soul, if indeed she had a soul. Because as a child, I can hardly say it. This child is a liar." He continued, "I learned this fact from Mrs. Reed, the kind lady who took care of her after her parents' death and brought her up as a member of her family. In the end, Mrs. Reed was so afraid of the child's evil influence on her children that she had to send her here. Teachers, watch her carefully, please." Of course, Jane, the poor Jane, was ashamed and angry, very angry about what he had said. Of course, now she knows that everyone will stay away from her. And the little girl wanted to start a new life at Lord School. She wanted to make a new friends. She wanted to make a new life. But she thought that after what he said about her, no one will talk to her and all of them will stay away from her. The little girl was boiling inside her until the angel Helen Burns passed a smile, very calm smile to her. That's really comfort her and make her calm. Mr. Brocklehurst ordered that the girl have to stand still for half an hour. And for sure, no one talks to her. So, after the required time, Jane climbed down the chair and sat on the floor. She no longer had felt strong or calm, and she began to cry bitterly. She really wanted so much to make friends at Lodz, to be good, to deserve praise. Nobody would believe her, or perhaps even speak to her.